Hi, and welcome back to another Mayor's Hour, Jack. It's been a great 2 years. We're coming up on 2 entire years.
That's right, 2 great years.
Yeah, it's gone by fast, and we've had the opportunity to showcase a lot of great economic engines in this community and a lot of great cultural assets that we have that no one else has, and it's been a fun 2 years.
And we are focusing on one today when you talk about economic engines and all the great things that are happening here with the Moffitt Cancer Center.
It is, it's Tampa's own. I mean, it was born here, it's grown up here. It is providing world-class cancer research as well as world-class cancer care for the tens of thousands of patients that are lucky enough to come to this facility, and we couldn't be prouder of Moffitt.
I know, I've had a couple of relatives who have come here, my mom and cousin Phyllis Marshall, that you might know from USF, of course, and it's just a remarkable place for the patients and the way they treat the families and everything. But beyond that, what's happened since Moffitt first opened as a cancer center hospital, the research and everything that's going on, of course, it's become a $2 billion economic engine for the community. But beyond that, the people that they bring in who become residents of the Tampa Bay area is such a tremendous boon to our community. It's unbelievable.
It's something we are really proud of. And we're going to be back in just a minute with Dr. Alan List, who's the CEO of the Moffitt Cancer Center. He's building on what Bill Dalton started, and he's going to take it to the next level. So be with us for just a moment, and we'll be right back. Jack, we're back with our guest of honor. He is Dr. Alan List, who's the president and CEO of the Moffitt Cancer Center. He's been here, how long, Dr. List?
I've been here, this is my 10th year.
10th year. And how long have you been the CEO?
I took over as CEO last July.
Okay, that's right. I knew it was relatively new. And, you know, he's been a great addition. He's really building on what Dr. Dalton has done and what H. Lee Moffitt, the former state rep, state Speaker of the House, who really was the originator of this, how long ago? 25 years ago?
We opened our doors in 1986, but it was created in state statute in 1981. And that was all driving force of Lee Moffitt.
Right, it really was, which is obviously why his name is here, and he's been involved ever since. But this is an amazing facility. Since I've become the mayor, I have learned so much about this and learned what a tremendous economic engine this is for us, not only in terms of job creation, but they are doing world-class cancer research here in addition to treating the patients.
Yeah, so that's the amazing thing. I mean, a $2 billion economic engine for the Tampa Bay area. The people that it brings in are incredible. And then beyond that, I don't think the founders or the people who put this together, and Lee Moffitt himself, could have had any idea how big, how massive it would have become, and what a great impact it would have, not just here, but nationally on cancer.
Internationally. I mean,
yeah, true.
I mean, they opened a facility right next to Tampa International Airport that's receiving international medical tourism for people in Central and South America. I mean, this is the closest cancer research facility. And tell me what the terminology is in the cancer business.
So we are considered a comprehensive cancer center according to the National Cancer Institute, which is essentially the crown jewel of all of the potential expertise. And it's grown dramatically. In fact, the National Cancer Institute has called us the fastest growing cancer center in the nation. And we have over 4,300 employees, over 1,000 dedicated just to research. We have some of the nation's leading experts in different types of diseases as well as it relates to cancer, as well as having some of the best researchers in the world. And with that, we saw about 18,000 patients last year, new patients, had over 350,000 outpatient visits, and patients from every state in the country and 78 different nations. So it's been amazing growth.
I know there are a lot of statistics out there that the largest in Florida, right, the place in Florida, and even in the region, right, in the southeast region?
We are the only comprehensive cancer center in the southeast region, yes.
And one of the biggest in the nation.
And the third largest in the nation.
That is amazing. Like I say, I don't think Lee Moffitt ever envisioned anything growing this exponentially, really, the way it has with what's happening off the main campus now in 2 different locations. It just continues to grow. And the thing is, I think perhaps when Lee and the people envisioned it then, they thought of it as a hospital caring for cancer patients more than anything else. And I think they were, like I was, as a younger person at one time, we thought, well, someday we'll find a cure for cancer, and poof, it's all gone, like polio, like it was wiped out back in the, 1950s, I guess, with Jonas Salk. And we expected something like that to happen, but obviously it hasn't gone in that direction. It's going to be by tiny, tiny little increments, and it's going to go on for generations.
It is definitely going to be incremental. We've learned a lot more about cancer, and even if you're talking about a specific type, like lung cancer or breast cancer, we now know that each individual's cancer is very different at the molecular level than someone else's. So it's getting to that kind of precision, understanding the molecular drivers of the cancer that's going to be the answer for each individual.
One of the things, and this is really what fascinates me, is the tissue pool that you have created. The tissue bank. Tell us why, what was the theory behind that? What are the benefits of that? What are the impact of is that for research?
Yeah, this began as what we call our total cancer care effort nearly 10 years ago. And this was our version of personalized cancer care, really personalized medicine. And you hear that term a lot nowadays, but we were the ones that really started it with the idea of asking 3 things to every patient that participates. Number 1, if you have a tumor biopsied or taken out, can we use a portion of that for research, if there's some available and still left? Number 2, can we follow you for life? And number 3, can we reach back to you if we learn something that could be helpful for you and for your treatment? And with that, we have over 95,000 people that have signed up for that.
That's amazing.
It is.
Volunteered to be a part of the cure.
All volunteer. We have over 35,000 tumor specimens. It's the larger cancer tumor biorepository in the world. And it's not just collecting those, it's studying them. So we've done molecular studies on those, gene expression, gene sequencing, you name it. And that volume of data allows us to do research and identify, for example, new genetic drivers in cancer.
And so a patient comes in, so you have this data bank, if you will, of tissues that you've collected that allows you to identify what the appropriate treatment would be as opposed to a scattershot approach. I mean, is that sort of the theory behind this?
Precisely. And let's say anybody can enter in and look at their patient's data. So it could be a physician up in Tallahassee that's treating somebody, and he's seeing his patient, he knows that that tumor's been studied here. He can get on and say, okay, what are the molecular features of this person's cancer? And what are the other patients that have had this, and how have they been treated? How was their outcome? Who did better? Who did worse with which treatments? So you can then really start to, even at the clinical level in the doctor's office, start to understand that.
And the computers have made such a big difference in being able to do all of that today.
And so the ultimate end game would be the commercialization of some of this treatment so that the drugs that are being designed as we speak are drugs that are targeted based on the research that you've done with your tissue banks.
Precisely. It's getting the drug to the individual when they need it and how it matches perfectly with the biology of their cancer. So right now with drug development for cancer agents, it begins what we call phase 1. It means people who have failed all types of treatments and they've just given the drug to see how they tolerate it, what's the best way to give it, and so on. And then eventually it works its way into a population we think it works. This takes the opposite approach. This takes patients, and the drug comes to the company, then we say, listen, that target, we know we have 1,000 patients in the database with that target that's driving their cancer. And we have 200 that need a treatment right now. Let's give the drug to them. The patient gets the best treatment for them based on the biology of their cancer, and the drug gets developed even faster. It helps the companies, but more importantly, it helps the patients.
Go ahead, Jack.
Well, I was just going to go back to, again, my mother was a patient here for a long time, and I can't say enough about what they did for her to make her end years as bearable as possible. And the same thing with Phyllis Marshall, as I said, from the Marshall Center over here, and was with USF for so many years. She, too, was a patient. And this is just a remarkable organization from that standpoint as a hospital, which was what it began as, solely as a hospital for cancer patients. And yet, within all of this other research and everything, you still maintain that one function and do it extremely well, because I know from other people who have relatives here. That's amazing.
How are you funded, Doctor?
Well, we are funded through grants, and we have $82 million in grant funding, which sounds like a lot. but that only covers a portion of a researcher's salary. The rest of that is funded by whatever profits we get from the clinical side, but more importantly, from our philanthropic funds. And with what's happening in healthcare reform, decreasing margins on the clinical side, philanthropic funds are going to be much more important going forward for us.
Well, I know both you and I appreciate what the Florida legislature has done using the cigarette tax money appropriately, which is to help cure cancer. We're going to leave right now and go see a video about what takes place out here, but let me tell you something. There is no better place if you were interested in making a donation or putting it in your will or your estate than the Moffitt Cancer Center. You can have a direct impact on the quality of life, not only of cancer patients, but potentially somebody in your family. So pay attention to what we're doing here today, and pay attention to what these doctors and researchers are doing, because you really can make a difference. Think about it. This is a great place to make a donation, because you will be making a difference, Jack.
Oh, absolutely. You cannot find a better use for your money. That's for sure.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
This is Moffitt Cancer Center, and this facility is Moffitt at International Plaza. So this is a satellite facility that was built to facilitate the patients who live in South Tampa, in South Florida, and then for people who are coming from out of state. It is strictly an outpatient facility, so we have clinics, chemotherapy infusion, radiation oncology, blood draws, and other ancillary services. But there are no inpatient facilities, so no patients in the hospital here, and no surgeries are performed here. We have radiology resources here, so we have mammography, breast ultrasound, ultrasound of the rest of the body. There's CT scans here, PET CT scans, and MRIs. Those are all available. We also can accommodate patients who their physician is primarily located at the main campus, Moffitt. If they would like to, they can come here for laboratory services or radiology services if they desire. There are other resources here, such as integrative therapy and nutrition therapy, social work services. From a patient convenience standpoint, it's a beautiful facility. Parking is much easier here, especially for the patients who are from the south. It's much more convenient location. It is right next to the International Plaza and right next to the airport, so it's easy to get to. But it's a much calmer facility. It's not as hectic as main Moffitt. There are approximately 60 to 80 on staff here, and people come and go, so they're at main Moffitt some days and at Moffitt International other days. There are approximately 150 to 200 patients seen a day, which equates to about 200 to 300 patient visits with their lab visits and visits to the radiology. I'm a gynecologic oncologist, and our field is quite unique in that we are both surgical oncologists as well as medical oncologists. I specialize in integrative oncology, and I'm actually an acupuncturist. And so I do my surgeries at main Moffitt, but I see all of my patients at this facility, and I do my chemotherapy infusions here. I enjoy this facility because it is a little bit calmer than the main Moffitt is, and when I do acupuncture here, it's a little nicer for the patients to have a quiet room.
Jack, we are back in an area that, as a student, I never came anywhere close to this.
You and me together, believe me.
There was no way they would have found me in this place at all. There's no beer, and there are no sorority girls, as best I can tell. So you wouldn't have found me anywhere near this place.
And anything having to do with chemistry, science, anything, I was at a loss.
Absolutely.
And this is the ultimate.
Yeah, I was going to say, we're in the big leagues now. We're here with Dr. Magliocco. Did I do that well?
Yes.
Did I get that good?
Perfect.
And we are in the esoteric lab. He has a title that's about this long, Jack. I don't even know what half the words are. And so I'm going to have to ask you, Doctor, what your title is and what is going on here. This is a pretty amazing place. So as much fun as we have with this really is serious science taking place.
No, absolutely, and welcome. Thanks for coming to visit us. So I'm Tony Magliocco. I'm the chair of anatomical pathology at Moffitt and the executive director of esoteric lab services at the Moffitt Cancer Center. So what that means is that I oversee the laboratory testing of anatomic pathology specimens, which are mostly the biopsies and tumor specimens that come from Moffitt patients. And I work on developing new laboratory tests that'll be useful for cancer patients.
So now what you're trying to do is find out what people have, right? What it is that has stricken them, what kinds of cancer, or basically working with pathology.
Exactly. So that's the first thing a pathologist does, is determine, do you have cancer? Is it a cancer or is it something else? Because sometimes there's benign conditions that may mimic cancer. So a pathologist does that first step. Yes, it is a cancer. Then looking down a microscope, they can determine what type of cancer it is, because there's different subtypes that you can tell looking down the microscope. Finally, there's a whole plethora of new types of testing based on molecular analysis of the tumors. And that's really critical for a patient to help select the right therapy that will actually work on that specific cancer.
And the thing is that there have been so many things that have been going on for years and years at the Moffitt Cancer Center, and yet you've built this entire new facility, this huge facility, I might add, out on McKinley Drive. And how has that taken it to the next level for Moffitt?
Right. As you've indicated, Moffitt has really been at the forefront of personalized medicine, collecting tumors, examining them, creating new diagnostic tests. And Moffitt has grown rapidly, and Moffitt leadership now feels that it's time to build this new laboratory to really expand and be able to offer the next generation and cutting-edge diagnostic services for our cancer patients. We're living in a really exciting time in science, in that new technologies from the Human Genome Project are now making their way from research labs into hospital labs. And that's what this lab does. It takes those cutting-edge technologies and puts them to work right on cancer specimens from our own patients right here in Tampa.
So the large tissue bank that Moffitt has acquired and accumulated?
Yes.
That is how you track sort of the trends in this and what reacts to different types of treatments?
Yeah, absolutely. Because when you come up with a new test, you want to make sure it actually works. And the only way you can know if it works is to look at a large number of people who might have had that particular cancer. Now, Moffitt is unique, probably in the world, in having this extraordinary collection of tumors that we can look back in and say, does this new test really tell apart people with lung cancer, which ones will respond to a certain medication? And if it does, we can be very assured that we can use that going forward with new patients coming in. So that tissue bank helps us give us confidence our tests really work, so that when we give a result to a new patient coming in, that we know that result is accurate and it actually means something.
And historically, the treatment of cancer has been more of a shotgun approach as opposed to a rifle approach. Because of the personalized medicine, and because you know, based on that tissue bank, how different types of cancers are going to respond. It is more of a rifle shot, so I would imagine a lot more effective.
Absolutely, absolutely. You've hit it right on the nail on the head.
Maybe I did go to that. It's on my cue cards right here.
Because as you stated, the older forms of cancer treatment were basically poisons that generally poison the cell. They're cytotoxic agents, whereas there's a whole generation of new targets that have been identified, and they're really darts that you can precision target the alteration that's only present in cancer cells, normal cells don't have. The challenge is that we know there's many different subtypes of cancer, and you have to match it to the right therapy. So there's dozens of different therapies, dozens of different types of cancer, and this is where we test the cancer to assign it to the right treatment. So we select the right weapon for the right cancer. And so
big pharma and the drug companies, are they taking a look at your data and developing specific drugs?
Absolutely, absolutely. So M2Gen and Moffitt have partnered with many pharmas to interrogate the tissue bank to look for messages and signals and weak points in the cancer to really design drugs that will target that, and also determine what existing drugs they have might work. Because they may have discovered and say, this drug, it seems to work in lung cancer. Are there other cancers that have the same changes as lung cancer? We find, oh, wow, some of the GI cancers are actually very similar to lung cancers. Even though they're from a different organ, they have the same molecular defect, which means they might respond to the same drug that will work in lung. Now you can use it on colon. So the pharma companies come and ask us, what other tumor sites have these alterations? Can they design a trial around it? Perhaps their drug will work in these other sites as well.
We've talked earlier on the show about the fact that it has changed so dramatically since when I was young. We look for a cure for cancer. Obviously, there's not a cure for cancer as such. We've learned that over the years now.
Yes, yes.
But do you all ever in here just have like a eureka moment? That's what we've always expected. I remember the Salk vaccine came out. As far as polio was concerned, it was a eureka moment. Everybody was thrilled. And one day we learned they could stop polio with a vaccine. Do you all have eureka moments in here when you find something, say, wow, this will do, fill in the blank?
Oh, absolutely. And you mentioned there's no cure for cancer, but there are cures for cancer.
But
if you
many,
look at
individual.
The question is that cancer, we've now learned, is actually a multitude of different diseases, and that cancer changes over time, so that you may treat it once, it shrinks, it comes back different. So what we're doing in medicine is converting it more into a chronic condition like diabetes, where we can manage it, and when it comes back, you control it, you manage it. But certainly, almost every week, there's a revelation and a revolution in our understanding of the biology of cancer, and new targets are emerging, new opportunities. And because of the technologies that exist now, they're doubling every 6 months, every year. We're having more knowledge each year than the preceding entire period of time before that, learning about how cancer behaves. And this gives us entirely new opportunities to combat it. So even in this lab, we're doing multiple projects, discovering alterations that are exciting, that we didn't anticipate in certain types of tumors, which lead us on to then designing clinical trials, saying, wow, we didn't know melanomas had this particular type of alteration. This might mean they respond to this therapy that's been used in colon cancer. Perhaps we can do a trial for that. So it's quite exciting.
One of the things that we talk a lot about on this show, Jack, and the reason why I enjoyed coming out and celebrating the success at here and at Camels and Tampa General Hospital, is the opportunities for commercialization of the research.
Yes.
To create real jobs and real companies and real opportunities. Have you seen much of that since, I know you're relatively young in your growth stage, but have you seen much of that, and is it pharma who makes the money, or is it the ability to create companies out here that potentially could be headquartered right next door?
I think there's numerous opportunities for technology and business to get involved. So it can start even from our own investigators, that they've discovered a gene alteration in a tumor, which could then be converted into a laboratory test, which then can be made into a kit, which then can be sold to labs across the world to be used to make a diagnosis. So that's one avenue that inventions get commercialized. The other is working with pharmas, helping them identify new targets for therapeutic intervention. The other is working with imaging companies and other biotechnology companies, looking at how can their technology be applied to improve diagnostic services.
We talked before we went on the air about expansion here already. I mean, this is a rather recent development here over the past, what, 3 years, 3.5 years.
We did a groundbreaking just a couple of weeks ago right out there.
Yeah, and you're expanding that way and that way.
Yes.
And that's really amazing considering the growth of Moffitt over the years, but it's grown into a whole new mission for Moffitt Cancer Center beyond just the small labs that they have over there, hasn't it?
No, absolutely, because we're cutting new ground here in terms of evaluating new tests that can really make a difference for our patients, helping provide the services that cutting-edge clinical trials need, providing the really expert services that other physicians in the community can get access to for their patients. So Moffitt is becoming a regional and national center of excellence in many different areas to provide services for patients, but also to provide a network of knowledge that can be distributed back out into the community to our affiliates and internationally to other centers, because we're all in this together in terms of trying to battle cancer. And Moffitt is one of the best placed centers in the world to conduct this type of research. As you mentioned, they've got the best tumor banks, they've got some of the largest clinical programs, they have some of the leading investigators in the world designing trials.
And as we've talked about before, I mean, you're talking about over now a $2 billion economic impact on the community, but as this grows, as you expand that way and that way, obviously it's going to require people, highly skilled people that are going to be coming to town, becoming a part of the community. And
keeping our best and brightest here.
You better believe it.
No, absolutely. We're on a recruitment right now. We've got jobs for dozens of scientists, lab technologists, and others to help us with building this enterprise.
See, he's got a lot of money when his wife Joy lets him have some. You ought to hit him up for a big donation. Let him put his name on the building.
Absolutely, we've got a space right over here.
Put my name on the bathroom door.
Well, Doctor, can you show us what this how do you say it?
Sequenom.
Exactly what this is. Carlos, I think you are...
He's the expert.
Carlos is going to tell me?
I'll tell you a little bit about the Sequenom. The Sequenom is a new device that's come into our lab. And in the old days, a few years ago, when we look at a tumor, we could only look at one mutation at a time. So we had to do a separate type of test for each mutation. And a tumor may have 100 different mutations, or we may have to screen tumors for numerous different mutations. This device makes it a lot easier and faster. So it does what's called a multiplex analysis. So instead of looking at one mutation at a time, we can look for dozens and dozens of mutations at a time. So the way it works is you extract a little bit of the DNA from the tumor, you amplify it up in a PCR reaction, and then it's dotted onto a little slide. And that slide...
This has put probably 50 people out of business.
Actually, it hasn't. It's created more jobs because of the amount of data that it generates. It's changed from people who are doing pipetting to people who are actually analyzing the data and doing... Exactly. So
right?
I believe so. Perfect. I think you're hired. You can stay and keep. We've got lots of
I'll keep my day job if you don't mind. So one doctor in my family is plenty.
That's right.
So the way this device works is that there's a small glass slide where the samples are dotted on, and basically it's gone into a vacuum, and a laser will shine onto each sample, which will basically cause it to blow apart and fly through a vacuum. And there's a detector in there that will measure the different fragments of DNA and determine the length of them. And from the length of each fragment, we can determine whether a mutation is present or not. And so by going through a chip like this, we're screening, I think, about 40 patients through 28 genes for hundreds of different mutations.
That is amazing. The people who developed this, I mean, the brilliance of the people who obviously it built on previous knowledge, but I mean, to come up with a machine like that that can do something so esoteric.
Absolutely. Hence the name.
Hence the name Esoteric Lab.
So this can increase our throughput by about 100-fold. So we can look at 100 times more genes, do 100-fold more patients than we would have been able to do with the older technologies. And the thing about this is that there's another generation of devices that we'll be adding later in the year that can do 100 times more than this. So the way that the technology is growing, it's really going exponentially, and it's really an incredible time.
I'm looking at the other Dr. Buckhorn here now.
Yes.
Who's hard at work in the Esoteric Lab.
So basically what you're seeing in the black box on the left is the target range. So where the crosshairs are where the laser is going to shine. And the little blue dots you see in the bottom right is a representation of the glass slide. And in each side of each one of those blue dots is the sample. So that the way the device works, it will move the grid over and shine the laser on each one of those samples. And when the laser shines on it, that sample is basically vaporized, and it goes up through the vacuum onto the detectors. And so all of the peaks will be measured in there, and then the computer will read out the weights and then convert it back into what was the gene, what was the assay, was it positive or negative for that specific mutation.
You sure this isn't the basketball pool?
It looks very much like that, very much like that.
The March Madness, yeah.
Absolutely.
So who do you got winning, Indiana, or you have...
I think Louisville.
Yeah, Louisville or Gonzaga.
And so on the left here, you'll have the results come off. So these are the different genes that are being read off. And then as it reads through the device, it will tell us whether that particular gene mutation is identified or not. So it's a very rapid way to analyze samples, and it's really revolutionized our ability to screen for multiple mutations very quickly.
Can I use these on him?
Go right ahead.
He did that better than he rolled his cigar, by the way, a couple of months ago.
Better, yeah. Well, Doctor, this is fascinating. Carlos, thank you. Yeah.
Yes.
Did I discover anything yet? Am I rich yet?
He'll take credit when it comes out of here. So I helped him that.
The last time I did a robotic surgery, I did one in Israel. I did I forget what it was, but it didn't end well. There was a lot of blood involved on the dummy. But Doctor, this is fascinating stuff. This is part of that new economy that we talk about all the time?
No, absolutely, and it's only growing.
Yep.
And the real exciting thing about it is making a real difference for patients, because it gives them a better chance of fighting cancer. because we can avoid futile treatments, we can find the right treatment for the right patient.
Everybody hope for the future.
Absolutely, and we learn more and more every day.
Oh,
so
I'm sure you do. Well,
it's
keep
an
up the good
exciting
work.
time.
You're making a difference.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you for visiting.
Oh, absolutely.
And you're welcome to come and put on gloves any day. Help us out here.
Can he keep the gloves?
Yeah. And I'll pass on that. My wife will wonder what. We'll be right back with a video.
Hi, I'm Eric Howrah. I'm the director of the Comprehensive Lung Cancer Research Center at the H. Lee Moffitt Cancer Center. I'm here today to talk to you about personalized medicine approaches for the treatment of advanced lung cancer. I'd like to welcome you to our research laboratories. So what's the yield of this new molecular medicine approach? Well, one study that was published in the Journal of Clinical Oncology about a year ago took the old approach and just used standard approaches for the treatment of cancer and enrolled about 1,000 patients on a clinical trial with a new drug and came up empty. Conversely, there was a very exciting article that was reported in the New England Journal of Medicine in 2010 that actually looked for a particular genetic change in cancers and gave patients drugs that overcame that genetic change. And in this study, people miraculously had amazing responses to a pill-based treatment. This is really the goals of personalized cancer medicine. Let me give you some other analogies. So sometimes when you go by computers, they all look the same. They have a keyboard, they have a screen, they have the computer. But I think we realize now that they can have very different properties, different chip speeds, different types of software. They can perform differently. This is the same thing with cancers. They can look the same under a microscope, but they have very different characteristics. So our goal is to use these underlying principles of the molecular underpinnings of cancer to guide how we screen for patients for early stage lung cancer that can be cured, how we can appropriately prevent lung cancer, how we can optimize treatment decisions for patients that have had surgery, or how we can treat people with advanced lung cancers. Why is personalized medicine important? Well, we need to develop cocktails of different drugs that are effective for each individual's cancer. We want to give drugs and treatments that are effective for patients. It's frustrating to give people medicines that fail and result in their death or their cancer growing. It's also a frustration to give people medicines that are at times toxic when they don't work well. There's also an issue of cost for us now. These medicines are exceedingly expensive, and they're a burden both for families and patients as well as society in general. We should be coming up with better ways to give therapies that may be expensive but are going to work well for people. We're currently using new approaches for the treatment of lung cancer by doing sequencing of genes, including sequencing of genes that make signaling proteins. On the surface of cancer cells are proteins such as the epidermal growth factor receptor, which drives tumor cell growth and also drives its survival. We can actually identify mutations in the gene that produces this protein and match these patients to pills that can cause strong remissions in their cancer. Moffitt's been participating in an NCI-directed program to do this type of sequencing on approximately 1,000 patients with adenocarcinoma of the lung, where we're looking at about 10 of these signaling proteins that have changes in their genetics, and we're working on matching them to appropriate drugs. This is very exciting and is really the future of personalized medicine. But we have a long way to go. We realize cancers are complex. They can have many genetic changes, and we have to form new combinations of treatments to cure patients with lung cancer. This includes multiple forms of pill-type treatment or combining pill treatments with drugs that enhance the immune effect and can engage the immune system to help kill tumor cells. In some cases, we still rely on chemotherapy, which has worked well for some patients, but we personalize this chemotherapy and select patients based on the genetics.
Well, welcome back. We've had a great visit here at Moffitt Cancer Center. We've been over to M2 Gen. We've seen some of the amazing world-class cancer research and cancer treatment that they do here and perform here. now we are in one of the surgical suites with Dr. Toloza, who we stole from Duke. I love stealing people from Raleigh-Durham and Charlotte and all the best universities in the world to bring them right here to Tampa, Florida.
That's right.
And you have been here about 3 years?
Yes, sir.
You are a cardiothoracic surgeon?
Yes, sir.
And what in the heck is this machine behind me?
This is our Da Vinci robotic surgical system. We do use it to perform various complex procedures, not just in the thoracic surgical field, but also in urology, gynecology, even head and neck surgery, and general surgery as well.
What's the advantage of having robotic surgery? Because obviously you have to have surgeons who are maintaining this or who are operating the robots, but what's the advantage of having the robots do it as opposed to the surgeons using their arms and fingers and that kind of thing?
Sure. Well, the surgeon still uses their arms and fingers, but remotely from the patient. So the benefits are that the surgery can be done through small incisions, usually about half an inch or an inch in size. The camera is three-dimensional, so the surgeon has better vision when they're doing surgery compared to two-dimensional, and we'll demonstrate that to you.
So the camera actually goes down into the patient.
Into the patient through one of those small incisions.
So you've got depth that you can, as a result of the 3D, it's...
That's right, depth of perception. Yeah. And then, and it's zoomed in, and then the instruments are also wristed so that they mimic the surgeon's hand movements.
Oh, so it actually, in real time, does what your wrists are doing, yeah.
Yes, and that they scale down the movement so that a surgeon can move 3 inches with their hands, but only move about 3 millimeters with the robot instrument, so it makes the dissection more precise. And then also the movements are intuitive. That's how the company got its name, so that if the surgeon moves their hands up, the robot instrument goes up, and when the surgeon moves their hands to the left, the robotic instruments move to the left. Whereas with the original VATS instruments, the surgeon has to move their hands down to get the instruments to move up, and they have to move their hands to the right to get the instruments to the left.
So as a cardiothoracic surgeon, what type of surgery would you be doing here on cancer patients?
So we would be doing lung resection to remove lung cancer. We would also do mediastinal mass resections that are like thymomas or thyroid cancers that are in the chest, or even biopsies for lymphomas, and then sarcomas as well that are in the chest.
But again, these are all done through small incisions.
Yes, anywhere from 3 to 5 small incisions. I usually use just 3 small incisions.
So as opposed to cracking the chest and opening it up,
exactly.
You're going in through the stomach?
No, through between the ribs.
Okay.
So don't have to cut the ribs, don't have to cut the muscles, and the recovery is a lot shorter, less bleeding, less pain. Shorter hospital stays, shorter ICU stays, and
smaller bills?
Return to activities. I believe they're about the same.
Are they really? Time on this is expensive.
I would think
well,
so.
The billing is based on what operation you actually do. So if you're removing a lung cancer, that's a certain bill, and if you're doing esophageal cancer, that's a certain bill. How you perform it is not necessarily affect the bill.
So when you go in between the ribs, what is it that's going in? What type of probe? What type of...
These small instruments here, I'll take one out. Here you go. Here's one of the instruments, and you can see the wristed instrumentation at the end.
So this whole thing would go into someone's chest cavity?
Well, this portion here.
Okay. Right. And this is the piece that would either pinch or...
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and these little wheels control the robot movement.
Huh. And they would cut the cancer out? Is that, in essence, what you're doing?
Yes, we can either use cautery or else...
cautery is the heat?
Electrical, yeah. Yes, electrical heat. Or else scissors. Whatever the surgeon normally would use in an open procedure, they have equivalent instruments
now,
for the robot.
Are all of those built into that one thing, or do you have to take it out and put another in? Or
yes,
take it out,
you have to have an assistant at the OR table that will change the instruments for the surgeon, depending on what they need.
How long has this kind of thing being used? I mean, this is remarkable technology.
It's been around. So the first couple robots were in the 90s, and they were installed in Ohio State and East Carolina University, and then from there it expanded. At Moffitt, the robot has been here for 5 years. It started out with gynecology procedures and urology procedures, like prostatectomies and hysterectomies. In 2009, we started thoracic surgery with Dr. Summers, who's now at Tampa General. And then I took up the ball when Dr. Summers left and have been doing this now for almost 3 years and have done almost 350 robotic cases.
Wow. And your training is, I know you were at Duke before this. Did you do your medical school at Duke as well?
No, I did my medical school at UCLA in California, and then I did my thoracic training at MD Anderson and Texas Heart in Houston.
Okay.
I'm wondering, though.
How long ago was that, John?
Yeah.
I forgot if he knows my brother.
Yeah, from 1998 to 2000, I was in Houston.
Okay, no, he was there after that.
Missed him.
Yeah.
Did you train on these robotic machines when you were learning?
No, I actually trained on this when I joined Moffitt. About a month after I came here, I went through the robotic training. It requires several steps. You start off with an online training module, so that learns the vocabulary and essentially parts of the robot. Then you do a dry lab training, which is similar to what we have set up here for the mayor. And then we do a wet lab training, meaning that you either operate on a cadaver or an animal. And then you go observe a experienced surgeon. In my case, I went to Hackensack, New Jersey to observe a surgeon up there doing lung resection. And then I scheduled 2 cases here for myself, and I had to have an experienced surgeon come and proctor my 2 cases. And then I had another 18 cases that were observed very closely by the Moffitt Hospital and OR team to make sure our outcomes were good before I became credentialed. So it took...
Is this the wave of the future for surgery? I mean, is this going to be happening at TGH and St. Joseph's and hospitals all over the country?
It is. It just requires training for the various surgeons and the OR teams. There are still cases that you cannot do with a robot just because of the size of the tumor or the location of the tumor, but most cases can be done with a robot. 90% of my lobectomies are now done with the robot, and more than 50% of my cases are done with a robot.
Now, Jack, you remember when we went to Camels and filmed at Camels? I would imagine the type of training and the robotics and the simulation that Camels has is applicable here for surgeons who need to train and practice?
Yes. So facilities like the Camels allow the surgeon to go, and that's where you do your wet lab training with the cadavers and live animals. They also have simulators that you could also then practice anytime. Even some surgeons do what's called a warm-up, where they go on the simulator before they plan to do their surgery, just to get warmed up with the
MRI of the patient that they're going to be operating on.
Well, the same movements, yeah. So they can practice suturing, they can practice moving the robot arms around, so then they can get proficient. In fact, the more you practice, it's been shown that the more proficient you are at doing different movements.
Well, speaking of practice.
Proficiency.
Yeah, proficiency. I never aspired to be a doctor, just because I could barely make it out of biology class in high school. But rumor has it that you have this robotic monster here set up for me to try and do something over here. So what do I need to do to
Yes, I'm going to have you sit at the surgical console, and then I'll show you just how to do the controls, and then we'll do some procedures here.
There's not going to be a real patient here, is there?
No, we have...
Jack, can we lie him there on the table? Except give me the sharp drill.
Up the nose, the big nose.
All right, so I need to go over here and sit down?
All right. Okay, now if you can bring the 2 robot arms as close to the camera as you can.
Okay.
Okay, now take your head away from the... Oh, yeah, it's too... Okay. Now, can you see that red cone towards the back of the plate?
Yep.
Can you try to get one of those hands as close to that cone as you can, just barely, without touching it, but as close as you can? And then you can clutch your hand if you want to move further. So you step on that left pedal if you want to bring your hand back towards you, and then push it away again to try to reach.
Doesn't reach it.
All right, try.
I can go lefty and right.
Yeah, but what you need to do is press on that clutch and then pull your hands back towards you, and then let go of the clutch, and then now you can push that robot arm closer.
Oh, there we go.
Okay.
Okay.
So try to get as close to the red cone without touching it.
All right. Without touching it?
Yeah, without touching
All right,
it. But as close as you can.
I'm right there, almost touching it.
Okay. Mr. Harris, can you tell us how close?
He's very close.
like a centimeter, an inch.
Oh, way less than an inch. I mean, a 20th of an inch, 30th of an inch.
With the, okay, but now we're going to switch you to 3D vision.
Okay.
And then you'll see that you can actually get closer.
I can't see jack. All right, there we go. Now I'm in there. I'm going to pick it up.
So are they able to, is he able to get closer with the, I switched to 2D to 3D vision?
He is, well, he might be a hair closer, yeah. He moved it, in fact, a moment ago, so.
And your vision, was
he's
it a
as
lot
close as
more?
you can get.
Yeah, now that I'm in here, it feels better. Yeah.
Yeah, 3D vision is a lot more precise than 2D vision. And just like when you go to a movie and it's three-dimensional, it's like the tissue, the characters are coming out at you. Here, we can actually see the different organs and tissues come out at us, just like we're looking into an open chest cavity or abdominal cavity. All right, so now I'm going to put a penny near your instruments, and I'm going to have you pick up the instruments with your robot arms. And you may want to try picking up, okay.
Whoa!
Now you can grab the other instrument, so flip the penny around and grab with your other arm, and then flip it around again. Do the other arm, keep doing that. All right, so that's...
That is remarkable. I mean, it's remarkable that he can do that.
Right. So you're not, Mr. Mayor Buckhorn can't see it, but these are our VATS instruments. So if we weren't using the robot and we still wanted to do small incision surgery, we'd have to use these long instruments that don't have flexible ends.
Let me put this in front of the camera. This is the alternative that would be used by the doctor if he were doing it manually and having to reach in and do what the mayor is doing now with that robotic arm.
Except you notice that if Mr. Harris moves his hands down, the tip of the instrument goes, he has to move his hands down to move the instruments up, and has to move his hands up to move the instruments down if the incision were where my fingers are. So if this is the incision in the patient, to move your instrument down, you have to put your hand up. With the robot,
it reacts in a logical fashion.
It's mimicking the surgeon, in this case Mayor Buckhorn's, hand movements in the console.
Well, now, he has done some damage to the penny. I don't know if that penny is going to be usable again afterward.
Oh, yeah.
Jack, it was never the hand-eye coordination that was a problem for me. It was the biology.
Right. And then if you bring the penny up to the camera, you can actually see Lincoln's face inside the memorial.
Oh, in the memorial?
No, not the head, on the tail.
Tail side.
And that just shows how good the camera is.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't think our camera can pick it up. Him picking it up.
You might on the TV monitor, but he has to bring the camera, the penny closer to the.
Bring it up closer to the light there and see if you can.
You may have to clutch your hand again, Mayor.
That is amazing how
so if you press on the clutch button on the
that you can get in a hurry with that thing.
And then when you release the clutch, you can bring the penny closer to the camera.
Oh, there you are.
And you should be able to see Lincoln inside the memorial.
You know, I can almost see it here. I never realized there was that great a detail on a penny.
Yeah.
We've really learned something big here on the Mayor's Hour today.
Right. Now, we actually have a suture available if you want to do some suturing.
I think I got about a minute left. I don't know if I can tie a suture in a minute.
All right. Well, this is actually a special suture that has barbs and loops that don't need to be tied.
All right, I'll give it a shot. I'll put the penny down.
All right.
Oh, I see you got the sutures right there. You want to sit here?
No. All right. So let's see. Here we go. Just keep that right arm up the way it was, like you're going to grab this. Open. Open your fingers. Okay, and then you can change the, well, you're not going to be able to suture the penny, but...
No, I was using the penny to straighten it out.
Oh, you can use your other hand. That's the great thing about having the robot arms. You can use the other hand to straighten out your...
So what am I suturing?
You could just place that needle through one of those plastic cones. Any one. And then use the other arm to pull the needle through and let go with your first hand.
We're going to be here all day for him to do that. Now, next month's Mayor's Hour, Steve the Mayor is still trying to get it through that little red thing. Oh, I think he's getting it in there.
But once you get it through, and then so pull that needle through.
He did.
Okay. Now let go of the needle and try to pull the suture backwards. No, grab the suture and try to pull it backwards, and it actually has barbs that prevent you from doing it. No, maybe not in this case. Never mind.
That one doesn't.
Well, not. I guess not. It doesn't work on the plastic.
Well, that is remarkable. Good job, Mayor.
All right. Well, Doctor, I think my medical career is over. I'm ready to go play golf.
All right.
But this is absolutely amazing. I mean, I wish all of you could see what I was trying to do in there and imagine what these guys can do on a live patient and how skilled they have to be able to manipulate that robot in 3D in this machine, sitting 10 feet away from the patient. The technology that's emerged out of all this over the last couple of years is just fascinating, and it takes skilled doctors like this to make it happen. Doctor, keep up the good work. You're saving lives and having a great impact on people's quality of life. So,
thank you very much.
Thanks. We'll be right back.
Read to a child today and spark a lifetime of ambition.
Jack, one of the great things about the Mayor's Hour is you really get to meet some talented people and see some of the amazing institutions that we have in this community that are doing life-saving work.
You know, there are features in the paper from time to time, maybe something on TV from time to time that tells what's happening at Moffitt Center, but we have filled this hour with information that people just aren't aware of. This robotic surgery, and that goes beyond just the Moffitt Cancer Center. That's kind of the future of medicine, the future of surgery everywhere, and to see what they're doing here
right here
remarkable.
in Tampa.
And again, the economic engine that it is, the people that it brings to the Tampa Bay area, and we've met the doctors, people who have come here and now are part of the community, which makes it a better place to live because of these people.
You know, when folks think about Tampa, Florida, they just don't think about the beaches or Busch Gardens. They think about world-class cancer care, world-class health care, world-class talent, which creates that cluster, which encourages other companies to come and be a part of this.
Yes,
and
indeed.
You hear me talk a lot about not wanting my kids to leave when I want them to come home here. These are the kinds of jobs that they'll come home to.
Yeah, and I'm the same way with my son. You know, I'm hoping that he will stay here and be a part of the community. And it's just amazing, though, that what's happening here. And what a great economic engine it's grown into for the community. And again, but to explore this, as I've said before, I get a bigger education on the Mayor's Hour than I ever did in school. Everything from wastewater treatment to this it's just, and I'm still surprised you're able to get that thing.
Well, I'm married to a surgeon, so I got a little practice.
I guess so. Well, you got a lot of things going on. Last month's greening of the river was spectacular. We hadn't had a chance to talk about that yet, but they had some great pictures, some great video, and it went viral. It was everywhere, and people were stunned at what they saw here. And of course, that happened first in Chicago, but ours looks better than Chicago River does.
It does, and we stole the idea from Chicago. They wanted us to have to pay their plumbers union to come down here and do it.
Oh,
no, I'm not kidding.
Are you serious?
No, I'm serious. I'm serious.
Oh, boy.
So I said, no, thank you. We'll find out a way ourselves. And so one of my young assistants found the dye formula, and we created our own formula, and we turned that river Kelly green. It is much greener than Chicago.
As anything could ever be. It is, and I've seen the Chicago Green River on St. Patty's Day. Ours is much better. One other thing we've got to talk about too, and that is more growth in downtown, because we've got a couple more condos or apartments coming on site.
We do indeed. Downtown's hot. There's far more demand than there is supply. In addition to the apartment complex next to the Straz, that's 350 units, $80 million investment. There were 2 more announced in Channelside, both of them ranging from $60 to $80 million, 300 units or so. Jack, I think we're this far away from getting a grocery store in downtown.
Oh, yes.
And there is a buzz about downtown that hasn't existed in decades, and this is all building on itself. And so as residential comes, so comes retail, and so comes the bars and the restaurants and the activities. And so downtown is red hot, and developers know it, venture capital knows it. The capital that's been sitting on the sidelines for about 4 or 5 years now as a result of the recession is now being put into play. And so I think over the next 3 to 4 years, you're going to see a transformation of our downtown.
Well, I think so, and I won't even bring up the Rays, but I know they are still looking at that big chunk of property right there, and I know I'm pretty sure the people over there at the Forum would like to see something like that develop too, and of course the increased infrastructure that would have to develop as a result of that. That place is going to be booming over the next 5, 6, 7 years.
It will. I mean, a baseball stadium would be transformative. But if that were not to happen, I think what Jeff Finnick, the owner of the Lightning, could do with that land that he controls around there, really could create an amazing entertainment district. The Riverwalk will be done in 14 months, so you'll be connected from the History Center all the way around to the Stratton
That's
Center.
That's going to be terrific.
It will be a very different, very dynamic environment, and I can't wait. I mean, I get up every day, I go over that bridge, I look at that waterfront, and I say to myself, 10 years from now, you are not going to recognize this city. And that river will be the center of everything that we do.
And, of course, expanding to the west side of the river, too, where nothing's been done in years and years and years.
Well, don't get me too excited on this, because I'll talk for an hour. We've got to go. Jack, thanks, as always. And to all of you, thank you for watching. Do what you can to help Moffitt. It is a great institution. We are so proud of this, proud to have them in our community, and proud of the great cancer care that they give to the patients that are lucky enough to get here. Amazingly talented group of surgeons and researchers and nurses and technicians that work here. We just wanted to show you just one of the great things that we have in our community. We'll see you next month. Take care. Be safe.